I gotta get...
I know. Get comfortable.
I get to where I can reach my caffeinated coffee. Mm-hmm. Oh, I gotta start the transcript software.
I was gonna say, I have transcript software, the timer, the recording software,
and I
our
also
mics.
need to silence my phone.
Yes.
I have it on Do Not Disturb, but I do not have it on silent. I will enter that polo later. My friend is couch surfing. No, couch shopping today.
Couch surfing and couch shopping are two very different things.
But you can do them at the same time. You can go couch surfing and then look on Amazon for a better couch to buy your friend to surf on while you're there.
Very true.
Transcript software. That's a lot of syllables. Mm-hmm. It's called Otter.
Yes, I think we put it on my phone.
But I'm not going to talk about them unless they sponsor us.
That's a good plan.
I have reached out to so many different people for sponsorships. And none of them have said yes.
Well, maybe we just let's get our next two up.
You know what I'm going to do? I haven't actually touched the audio from our last recording. Like, confession time. Oh, no, I have. I did. And then I realized I had to do something that was more time intensive to make it sound better.
Yes.
And then I became unemployed and I got very distracted.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and plow through the last two and these two and just release all four at once.
And then we'll have 4.
We'll have 6.
Well, 6 total, yes.
Yes.
4 new.
All at once.
Yes, which will make my client very happy because that's the reason she came. Was what I said on the podcast. What you said.
And there's still just 2 episodes.
And there's still just 2.
I am gonna start. Oh, I started. It says now recording. I'm gonna trust it, even though
so
words are not showing up. Oh, there it goes. Okay. The transcript software is recording. I've got my pen, my pad. I can reach my coffee.
Okay, so the plan is, tell me again, we review. Do we say hello, check in?
We do.
Okay.
We do whatever our hearts desire. It's our podcast.
Right. But then,
so yeah, we talked about, so this is
into
episode 3, part 1, because we haven't really talked in a month.
Exactly.
And so there needs to be like some catch up before we go into the debriefing.
Correct.
Which we stopped debriefing right before I told a story about how I peed in my car.
We might need to, share that
to
story
play through that?
today.
Yeah, that was super fun for me. So that's where we will start the debriefing, just to give you guys a little teaser, because yes, I am already recording.
We're already recording!
I feel like I'm going to do that to you every single time. Yes.
And I'm never going to be ready, which is probably a good thing.
Life is practice.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that our point anyway?
That is what it means to follow your true north, is just to believe that life is practice and then practice your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done. We're done.
Okay.
That's all we came here to say.
Yeah. Goodbye.
5 episodes in. The story has been told.
Okay. All right. Are you starting or am I going to start?
You have the thing written down.
I thought you wrote it down.
No, you wrote it down.
Oh, I thought we were both writing it down. Okay. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. See, you got my line. Yes. Good morning. Welcome to the True North Podcast. We are 2 practicing light workers who get together for 2 hours once a month to talk about all things wholeness and healing for body, mind, and soul, from the spiritual, metaphysical, to the downright practical, to help you find and follow your true north. So I am Abby Cameron.
I am Ryan Bayron.
And here we are.
In your office. Your brand new office.
In my brand new office.
Your sweet new digs.
Exactly. It's very exciting. It's
very lovely in here.
Well, we're getting there. The artwork's a little bit too small, but what I had was too oversized, so it's in process.
What did you have before?
I had this big, so there used to be these big screens that wallpaper manufacturers would use to print wallpapers on a very large scale. Mm-hmm. And there's this really neat lady up in McKinney, the Screenery. She's on Instagram. I'm going to plug her because she's amazing.
The
But
screener.
she basically went into this old factory, this wallpaper factory, and bought all these old screens up and now sells them basically as giant works of art. Because
Are they
they're
the screens
amazing.
from like, do they use them for screen printing
Yes,
onto the wallpaper?
right.
Oh, wow.
So it's like you look at it, and the one that I have is the screen is blue, and it's like in a huge aluminum frame, and then the pattern is just whatever wallpaper pattern. So the one I have is like a floral design,
That is
which is
smart.
clear, and so the rest of the screen is blue except where the
Right.
pattern is, and it's gorgeous and tells such a fun story. But it's just too massive for this wall.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Where is it now?
Back at my house.
You
where
have a
it
wall at your
was.
house that it fits on?
I do. I have very tall ceilings, and Christy, my wife, was not happy when I chose to take it down and bring it to my office. So she was elated when it returned home and
now you
put
have these
back in place.
3 little tiny
Very
mountain-
tiny.
mountain things.
Very tiny. So I'm working on the art, but we're getting there.
I like
But it's
it.
starting to warm up. Like
Yeah.
it feels legitimate. Like my work now is legitimate.
If
Instead
I
of just
like,
a hobby.
walked in here, I would be able to tell that this is Abby's office.
Really?
Yes.
Why? How so?
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of nature things. You've got the little flowers and sticks in the jar with the cork.
Yes.
I feel like that was a very uneloquent way to say whatever that is.
It was perfect.
You got a
What it
plant
is,
there.
nature stuff.
You got arrows, which is like, I don't know. That takes me back to Camp Grady Spruce when we were like sleeping in nature, and you
Also a
slept on
metaphor.
a table.
I did. I slept on a table.
I don't know why that was a thing, but like
Well, there was-
we were like college age, so like everything
Yeah.
was a thing,
Right.
And so people were all complaining about sleeping in whatever sleeping situation tent thing that we were in, and then someone was
Cots.
like, Abby slept on a table last night. And then that just ended all of the complaining. Because at least we weren't outside on a table. No, none of them knew that you were like enjoying it or that you wanted to.
Exactly.
But
Right.
it was just very,
I totally forgot about that. Yes, and was visited by a raccoon in the middle of the night because of all the s'mores leftovers near the table.
I forgot we did the s'mores.
Yeah. So I have arrows, nature stuff.
You got some stones, you got your
all my crystals.
your sprays,
Yeah.
the essence,
Flower
why can't I say
essences. Yes.
essences? That word is my nemesis right now, I guess. Yeah, it just looks like, and here's a plant.
Sansevieria.
It's a real plant. It's not a fake one.
It is. Does well in low light.
Perfect. I don't know. It just feels like
Well, good.
it's not like wood.
Yeah.
It's very outdoorsy for an indoors.
Perfect. Kind of goes back to that raw nature I try to get people to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rich, abundant, and wild. Why is that not up here anywhere?
Well, it will. So I have to get some vinyl decals, and I think I'm going to vinyl decal it on the wall, perhaps. I'm
You
not
still have a
certain
lot of
yet.
wall space around the
Yeah.
mountain painting.
A lot of giant wall space. Anyway,
Okay, so that's a tour of Abby's new office.
come by and see me.
Yeah.
Richardson, Texas.
The third
You're not
room
here.
in this building that we tried, and the acoustics are better than
Yes.
everywhere else.
Yeah, which is kind of nice that we landed in here. I think it's fitting.
What's new?
What's new?
What's new with you?
Well, I'm coming off a really good high today compared
Yeah.
to last month when we spoke.
We were both so just.
Low.
I don't know what it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I do, but we were just so like tanked.
Yes, but in a way, okay. So part of me when I left was I was clearly upset.
Yeah.
Right.
I felt a lot of guilt over that for a couple of days.
Well, you shouldn't. We can come back to why you felt guilt. You're sitting in my business. But
Yes.
no, I had guilt over that because sometimes I feel like, I'm supposed to have all my shit together. And that's how a lot of people perceive me. And so if I show up and tell you that I'm also angry or I'm having these same emotions, then in some ways I feel like you will take my credibility into question.
Right.
So that's a condition, right? That's old thought patterns that have sort of been in play for a really long time. And so when I'm in that space, it's hard to be mindful to not go there. So I went there, but then realized, like, no, this is the very thing that I wanted to do with this podcast.
Yes.
Is we are human. I mean, in that moment, that's how I was showing up. That's how I felt. It was real. It was raw. Because I want this to be relatable. So that's right. I don't feel so bad anymore. Although I'm still afraid to go back and listen, but I will find some nugget of wisdom in there. But I am glad that, this is life. Life is practice. Even those of us that have the tools still have to practice.
Right.
But today is very different. Today I'm on a high. I taught a class all morning on mindfulness-based stress reduction to a bunch of paraprofessionals in Allen ISD. And it just reaffirmed the fact that people so desperately need this. Like, we are in a time where we are just consumed with everything that's being placed on us and how much we carry it around and how much we own it and how much it's causing us suffering. And so I felt like I offered sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, and not in a way where I'm going to take any of it away, because life is in balance and we're always going to be given these challenges. In fact, the nature of their position, like, they're sort of stuck in this place where they get the brunt of a lot of anger from parents, teachers, things like that, bosses, but they're also in a position where they can't do anything about it. And so if they don't process it and channel it, then they just consume it, and then it consumes them. And so it just...
Oh, say that again.
If they don't process it, they consume it, and then it consumes them.
Boom! Pause the podcast and just sit with that for a while. I have a hashtag when I'm reading books. It's just RTA, and I write it, and it stands for read that again.
Read that
and
again.
I just underline a thing and I put RTA.
RTA. I'm gonna have to use that.
I think I've written that on like every third page in this Eckhart Tolle book that I'm going through.
Yeah.
But so like hashtag.
So basically read the whole book again.
I know that I'm going to have to reread it every time. Like when I get to the end of it, I'm like, okay, I have to start over. This is the only book I'm ever going to read, just like on loop.
Over and over and over on loop. Yeah.
So this would be listen to that again. LTT. No, we're just going to stick with RT. Sorry, I totally derailed you. No. But that was so good. If they don't channel it, they consume it, and then it consumes them.
And then it consumes them.
RTA.
Yes. And so I'm coming off a high because I do find a lot of value in helping people find some peace, right? And so being able to give them some tools so that they don't consume it, it's very gratifying. And I'm just really grateful that I had the opportunity. So that is how you find me today, in a very good place, because I feel like I have a lot of purpose today.
I don't know if this is true, but the Dalai Lama said, if you want... Oh, see, now I just realized I don't even remember the quote. It was something like, if you want to be happy, help somebody else.
Yes.
But there was a second part to that. It was like, if you want people to be more happy, help somebody else. If you want to be more happy, help somebody else.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll have to go.
No, I know what you're talking about.
That's where you live right now.
That's where I'm living right now.
You're in a good place because you brought other people to a good place.
Absolutely. I feel like even if momentarily I affected positive change, and I love doing that. So there you go.
That reminds me of, there was a TED Talk that I listened to where a guy told the classic tale of, like, he had made a lot of money and not a lot of time, and he was a young executive with more liquid funds than he knew what to do with, and this awesome job and everything. And then he, realized that he wasn't happy, and so he just downsized and got rid of it and quit his job. And there are a lot more stories of that kind of thing happening over the years. But what he did was he traveled the world, just finding everybody he could ask, and just said, what would make the world a better place? Just a very open-ended in general, from billionaires to people who just make baskets all day, like all over the map. And he said the one common denominator he found between all the different answers he got was the world would be better if people helped each other more. That was just it.
Yeah.
In any capacity, no matter what it is, if you're spending your time and energy to help somebody else's experience be better, then if everybody did that a little bit more, the world would be a better place.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine how the word elevate just keeps my guide in my mind is like elevation. Like it would just elevate our whole energetic vibe.
Here's the weird thing is that we're physically programmed to do that. Like a helper's high is a real thing. You get a real dopamine shot from helping somebody else. Seeing somebody else's face light up because of something you went out of your way to do for them.
Right.
Is something our neurochemistry is programmed to ding and say, hey, do that again. Mm-hmm. You know, like you would think it would be something that we naturally do as often and as readily as anything else that gives us a dopamine shot.
So that I've often had this question because the same is with exercise, right? Exercise feels so good, but why don't we do it on a regular basis? And I think it's because we are so prone to negative bias. Like we are just hardwired for negative bias. Like it's just much easier to not do that, even though we know we will feel better. We know what we're going to get out of it, but it's just not our natural state of being. Again, it takes practice.
You know, I don't have blind spots in my car. And that's a total out of left field, but I'm going somewhere with that. I figured out a long time ago that you don't need to have blind spots. Like, you can get a really wide mirror that wraps around a little bit. In my rearview mirror, I can see out the rear window, the back seat windows, and half of the front windows. Like I can look this way out into my rearview mirror, and I can see out my passenger side window, like directly to my right. And then the only place that mirror can't see is the places that are blocked by the car. So then I have my side mirrors angled outwards so that that's front and center in those mirrors. So I can be looking at straight ahead, and I can watch a car go straight from like right behind me, around me, past me up and go in front of me. And at any point in time, I'm facing forward and I can see them. And by the time their taillights are leaving my mirror, I can already see their nose in my peripheral vision. And so you don't need to do that thing where you turn around every single time you're changing lanes. I don't have a blind spot. And I did that because I realized I did a defensive driving course when I got a ticket, and I realized how much like distance you can actually travel when you're going 85 miles an hour with that quick little turn around to check your blind spot thing. Like that's enough time for someone to sideswipe you. That's enough time for something bad to happen. And so when I did this, I was telling them I was evangelical about it. I was super excited. Like, you don't have to, you know, especially people who have like kids and car seats and stuff. Like, you can drive without ever turning around to look in that stupid blind spot by just getting rid of it by doing your mirrors a little bit differently. And nobody bought into it. Like, even people who were like, oh yeah, I can see how that's a better way to drive. You know, like they could even acknowledge that.
Right.
I'm glad for you that you don't have to turn around and look the opposite way from where you're going for half a second every time you're changing lanes. Cool. And that was it. There was no, I'm going to try that. Or, hey, that's a better way of doing things, so I'm going to do it now too.
Right.
0 people did that. And so now I'm just the crazy person with the weird mirrors who is like very, very adamant about not having to check for a blind spot when I'm driving.
And really excited about it.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, I don't know. That's kind of what you were saying.
Yes.
It's like, people can even acknowledge that it's a better way of doing life.
Right.
Without actually then taking a step to do it.
Right.
Maybe because people don't want to adjust, or because we just like doing things the way we know that we have done them. I don't know.
Yes. I also think, I'm grabbing my pen because I'm old school in my paper. I also think you have a metaphor there about your blind spots.
Oh.
Right? Like,
right.
And turning your head. So I'm going to let that sink in and come back to it. Because I love a good metaphor. But no, you are right. And that is a question that I constantly wonder about with human nature. Whoa, did you hear my stomach growl?
Is that your stomach?
Wow. It's a fasting day, everybody. I'm a little hungry.
Got it.
Anyway, I digress. Okay, how are you?
I am all over the map. I mean, actually, that's a crazy thing for me to say because my normal MO is to be all over the map.
So what's really new?
I'm all over the all overness of being on the map is the worst way to say that.
Okay.
Well, okay, so I am unemployed at the moment, and there are so many learnings that have taken place in this chapter of life. and I'm trying to soak them all in. And some of them are the exciting kind where you're like, yes, I'm about to level up as a person, as a human. And then some of them are like, oh, I've gone like 20 years without dealing with this thing, and it's now haunting me, and I have to do work on it, you know? So there's the stuff that hurts. There's the stuff that's exciting. The tough thing is that they all want to get learned right now. It's like being flooded with all the trick-or-treaters that are all in the neighborhood. They're all at your front door. And you only have so much candy, and you can only,
right.
Like, how do you figure out that whole thing? And so right now I'm just kind of like chipping away, but I've had to get regimented with myself and every night make a plan for exactly what I'm going to do the next day, and then say, is this doable? What else is going on? Because when you don't have a job to go to, you have those 40 hours a week back, and so you think you have all this free time. But before, I would get home at 6:30. I had like 90 minutes to spend with my kid before he would go to bed. And then, you're exhausted after that. And so the only time to do anything else was on the weekend. So the weekends were always crammed and we're running around. And so life was just all over the place. And so now I have all the time to do things that we were cramming into a weekend. And so there's all those things. So like house projects that I started when we moved in 4 months ago are now finally getting finished. And, I'm doing all of the chores so that those don't have to just, get done whenever we can do them. And, I'm filling my time with that, but then I'm also engaging in some self-care. So I started a yoga practice, and
awesome.
That's been insanely helpful for like the back pain and leg pain that I was experiencing last time we recorded. It's just like I went to a Rosti and they really helped me get to where it wasn't hurting anymore, and they gave me some physical therapy exercises. But if I didn't do those several times a day, it would start hurting within hours, and I would be walking with a limp again. And then just the yoga, just doing the yoga has helped me to, now I'm only even realizing that nerve pain is still there every few days when it really flares up after I push myself too far. So what you were saying about the exercise, like when you said the word exercise, I was picturing going outside and lifting weights until I was about to fall over and die.
Yeah.
But it's just like sometimes a little 25-minute yoga thing with movements that I can do and shapes that are accessible to me is all it takes. And so I've been meditating more, doing yoga, I've been journaling, all that stuff.
Good.
So I got my morning routine, and then reading more. But then I've also got the job hunt, because I've just been socially conditioned to think that if I don't have a job, I don't have income. If I don't have income, I'm going to die. There's some more steps in there,
yes,
but that's
right.
the ultimate fear. So you find yourself without a job and you think, what do I have to do? I have to go get a job. And so I'm like trying to sell myself and work the network and do all that stuff, just so I can land myself back in a position where I don't have time to do anything. And then the whole time my guide is like, hey, why don't you pursue that book deal with the publisher that someone told you about that's right up your alley with the book that you've written? Or why don't you pursue getting an agent and getting those speaking gigs that you were talking about? Or why don't you actually fucking edit the podcast episodes that are sitting there on a hard drive with nothing happening to them and spend your time doing that? So there's the social conditioning, get a job. There's the spirit guide, do the next thing. There's the body saying, slow down and take care of me. And so then all of a sudden I have no time. And all the time I'm doing anything, I'm thinking in the back of my head, I could be doing XYZ else.
Yep.
So then the big learning is just be here now and commit to what you're doing and let that be all that there is. And then when you're done with that thing, you have a list, you've come up with a game plan the night before. So check this off and do the next thing. And if you don't like that you didn't address the job stuff this as much as you wanted to today, well, then make sure you're more intentional about it tomorrow. Sure. I went, one day I forgot to take my ADHD medicine, ironically, because I got distracted. And so, but this particular medicine also has some serotonin in it. And I didn't realize how much that was affecting my mood, because then all of a sudden I didn't get that. Sure. And I just felt like I was in the dumps all day. Right. And really that's what I was feeling before, but I just gotten used to this. And so now the way I was feeling before feels extra melancholy. And so then all the negative stories started flooding in, and the lack of motivation led to more lack of motivation. I spent a whole day doing nothing. And then the next day I was in bed until like 11. I just couldn't get out of bed.
Okay.
It's just like, well, everything sucks.
Because you're caught up in your mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, if I'm in bed past 8 o'clock, I'm like, well, there goes my morning routine that would be done by now if I just got out of bed. And then, you just tell yourself that story about how today is already a failure. So then there's no point in trying. And then you make it a failure. So I had 2 like really, really, really bad days last week. And then, you know, you got to pull yourself back up and start doing the stuff. And so it's just.
So how do you do that? Because I know there's a lot of people that come into this state of mind, and not necessarily from losing a job, but from, I mean, anything. They can come to that state of mind. How do you pull yourself out? Like, what did you do to say, all right, pulling my bootstraps up?
Okay, so this is something that my guide has been training me on. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but before, my guide talked to me one other time before I asked for the thing that led to the healing. One other time, I didn't even recognize it as my guide until after I realized that that was her way afterwards. But I used to get sleep paralysis a lot.
Wow.
I never really like had the hallucinations or the nightmares or anything, but I would just, my body would wake up, or my mind would wake up before my body, so I'd be awake and I couldn't move. Okay. And it's really scary. And the very last time that ever happened to me, I started panicking, and then this little voice just came my way and said, hey, you're trying to like stand up. How about just start small and breathe? Like, your lungs are a part of you, and if you're breathing, then you're not completely paralyzed. Sure. And move your eyes, and then move your eyebrows. Now wiggle your toes. And so, like, step by step, just kind of guided me into fully being able to sit up by just calming me down and having me take baby steps. And recently, she did something very similar, where I guess it was a couple days after I lost my job. And again, social conditioning came in, told me a bunch of stories, self-worth, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And she just had this very calming, like, motherly demeanor about her. And she goes, hey, so why are you upset? I said, well, I lost my job. And she said, okay, you lost your job? I said, yes. And she goes, well, where is it now? Like, can you find it? Mm-hmm. I was like, what? She goes, like, what are you saying that you lost? Can you paint it blue? Can you smell it? Can you throw it at somebody? What? I was like, okay, I hear what you're saying. She goes, okay, so what is a job? I said, I guess a job is a state of being in which I get up in the morning and I go give my time to somebody else and then I come back. She goes, okay, so it's a habit. Okay, yeah, sure, let's go that way. I lost my habit. And she goes, well, you used to do yoga and then you stopped, but did you say you lost your yoga? Or did you just stop doing it? I said, okay, I stopped doing it. She goes, why? And I said, well, there are other more important things to do. She goes, okay, so you broke a habit because there are more important things to do. And I said, okay. She said, okay, so you didn't lose anything. Let's focus on the more important stuff. And then it was really, really easy to get out of bed.
Sure.
And I'm just sitting there like, my mind was blown.
Right.
Because I woke up feeling like I lost something that was so much of my life hinges on.
Right.
And she just dissolved
Took
that.
it all away.
And said, that's not even real.
Right.
It's just like, that's not real.
No mind, no problem.
Yes. And so then all the stories I told myself about what led to it and what might happen and all the things about the past that led up to it and all the things about the future that this means, they all just dissolved with it. Sure. And then instead it was get out of bed and start doing yoga again.
Right.
And that's something I can do. And there wasn't a story there. It was just, I'm just doing yoga now.
Right.
And so I don't like calling it positive self-talk because I'm still in a weird place with the whole positive negative dichotomy, but I'm calling it intentional productive self-talk. Sure. Where now I don't really need my guide to do that. She just does it for me when I'm refusing.
Shifts your perspective.
Yeah, but now I can kind of do that for myself. If I'm getting wrapped up in a story or what this means about XYZ, I'm learning how to bring it back to the now, bring it back to what is, what exists, and identify, are the thoughts I'm having real thoughts that can be like written in a history book, or are they just stories that I'm telling myself about what it means about me or XYZ, right? And then if they're just stories, I just kind of let them be stories. I don't deny them. I don't reject them. I don't say, no, you're wrong, because our minds are racing with those stories all the time. And so I think to reject those,
yes,
if that's what your mind is doing, is to reject your mind as well.
Right.
Which is, I think, ultimately the goal, but it's hard to do cold turkey, you know?
Yeah.
And so instead, I just let the story be what it is, but I move from being the character in the book to the person reading the book.
Sure. The observer.
Then, yes. Mm-hmm. And then I stop, all of a sudden, what happened in the past kind of stops being a point of worry because I can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. What might happen in the future stops being a point of worry because there's no way to know.
Right.
And so then all that's left is what's right now. And so I'm kind of just doing for myself what my guide has trained me to do by doing it with me and for me and facilitating. Mm-hmm. You just recognize when something is a story and then just step outside of it.
So the first thought I had when you said just get up and do yoga, in my mind I'm thinking, but yoga's not going to get you a job, right? But then I keep going down that line of thinking and I'm like, but it will. And here's why. Because you are now opening up your energy to receiving. Mm-hmm. Because before you were shutting everything down, which means nothing is going to come your way of abundance, right? But by getting up and actually doing yoga, while that may not be what your job ultimately ends up being, but it's something for yourself that leaves your energy open, that if you keep doing that, something is going to manifest out of that, as odd as that sounds. And so I guess the reason why I'm saying this out loud is I also want to note that sometimes the very thing that might not get you the job will be the very thing that gets you the job.
yes.
Right?
It's never, it always feels counterintuitive.
Yes.
The answer always feels counterintuitive.
It does. Like getting yoga, or doing yoga, in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, well, I need to be working on my resume or hitting the pavement or networking with people. But sometimes, no, that's not the case at all. The very thing that won't have anything to do with the end goal is going to get you to that place. Yes. So I'm so glad to hear you say that that's what you're doing, because it is that total step, and you are attracting now opportunity and abundance.
And the yoga right now is my number one teacher.
Sure.
And while I'm doing the yoga, the only things in my head is either empty or it's processing something that I just learned from something that happened in the practice. And so an example would be, I haven't really done anything physical or at least like physically expensive, something that like takes work to do, you know, in a long time. And so there's a part of me that thinks I should still be able to do what 18-year-old going to the gym 30 hours a week at doing gymnastic stuff me should be able to do. Mm-hmm. So then when I can't, there's instant, just
all or
judgment.
Nothing.
Right. Like I can't do this, but I identify as someone who can do this. So then it turns into an identity crisis. And so the first thing I learned, or not learned, but was reminded of, is just allow yourself to be where you are. Mm-hmm. I cannot bend over and touch my toes with my legs straight anymore. And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
And that was something I had to relearn.
Sure.
And so I'm watching this YouTube series. It's like a 30-day thing. And of course, the person in the video can do all this stuff. So I'm comparing myself to her.
Right.
And so at first it was just like, just be okay with being what I am. Mm-hmm. And that translates directly into I'm hunting for all these jobs. And they're comparing me to a list of abilities, a list of what's the word? Competencies. Mm-hmm. And so then you get on the phone with them and they say, can you do this? Can you do this? Can they do this? And you're critiquing your form and in your ability to do the thing.
Sure.
And I can either get all spun up about, oh no, I'm not qualified for this. I can't do this because whatever, I don't have that skill set. Or I can just allow myself to be what I am and say, hey, here's what I can do. Mm-hmm. And then that feeds into the other learning I had, which was when I used to do yoga a lot, I learned that there are a lot of things that you first you have to like hold on to them and be intentional, and then they just start happening on their own, like engaging your core, or continue to breathe, or breathe into your abdomen and not your chest, or listen to your body, and like all of those things. You just kind of have to hold on to all of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning how, no matter what the pose is, no matter what I'm doing, to make sure I'm engaging on all four corners of the feet and not like putting my weight weirdly on the edge or something like that. I'm having to remind myself, keep breathing, don't hold your breath. I'm having to remind myself, don't overexert yourself to hold the pose, adjust the pose to what you can do. I'm having to remind myself, breathe into your abdomen and not into your chest and all this stuff, right? And the idea is that eventually I'll get to a point where those are all just natural things that accompany me no matter what pose I'm doing.
Sure.
But those aren't what they ever tell you to do. They don't ever say, do those things. They're saying, okay, now do downward dog. Now do this pose. Now do this pose.
Right.
You just kind of have to self-coach yourself into all these little unspoken things that undergird your ability to get a meaningful experience out of the yoga the whole time. And so then I'm thinking, like, how does that translate into the job search? Well, they're looking for competencies. They're looking for, can you do Photoshop? Can you do Illustrator? Can you work well with others? Can you communicate? Yeah, sure. But you're not asking me if I have influence. You're not asking me if I have presence. You're not asking me if I can sit across the room from somebody and have them babble at me and then have me figure out what they're really trying to say and then say it back to them in a way that makes sense. And those are the things that I'm strong at. Nobody has asked me if I can do those things. But those are kind of the breathe into your abdomen, don't hold your breath. Those are like the soft things that permeate every single thing I would bring to every single job. And those are also the most important things.
I would agree.
And so...
Correct.
Correct. And so now, again, I'm learning things from yoga that are then translating to everything else, where now the job hunt it's not so much about the qualifications. It's not so much about the laundry list of can you do this, can you not do this. It's about allowing myself to be what I am and communicating the unspoken intangibles that make me an asset to the team, aside from all the little check boxes that they're trying to see if I'll check.
And I think ultimately what you're doing is you are convincing them of what they didn't realize they needed.
Yes.
Just by having that awareness and bringing it to the table.
And you want to know the kicker? My guide who told me to do the yoga, which is the place I'm learning all these things, is also saying, stop trying to find a job. Try to find an agent. Like there's that whole other side where like it's like with the person who leaves the abusive relationship and jumps into another one.
Yes.
Like you're trying to get insurance for your kid.
Yeah.
But what the cost of that is the thing that you were put here to do.
Yes.
And so figure out a way to do this without that. Like you're just trying to go back into the thing that you were trying to get out of, that I pushed you out of.
Right. I gave you the opportunity.
Yes.
And now you're trying to get
it. Now you're trying to get another one. Don't do this. Like, yeah, cool. Use all the lessons and take it all in, and then use that here instead of there.
Yes.
So then I'm like, okay, why am I even doing this? Like, why am I trying to get another job? I don't even want another job. I mean, I do want security. Sure. And I really do want insurance. Sure. Because I need to know that my kids' medical needs can get taken care of like that if they should arise. Right. But I also know that there are tons of people who are doing the thing that I'm trying to move into. Right. Who also have security and they have medical provisions.
Well, and I was going to say, you were looking at that from a very, there's a blind spot. A blind spot, because there are other ways around insurance. And it's what you're saying to me is very black and white. You're saying I have to have a job for insurance, or if I don't have a job, there is no way to take care of my child. Yes. And it's all impulsive. It's all just reactionary. It's just our culture says that is the path of least resistance to achieve those things. Correct. And so I'm all panicky because money is a finite resource and we're having less of it come in now. Right. And so you're letting that be the driver. Yes. Instead of just, hey, look, you have all this free time. Yes. You could be doing all the things that you were dreaming of while you were busy at your desk, not doing your job because you were daydreaming about doing the things. Now just fucking do the things. Yes. But go back to your yoga. I mean, the lessons you're using from yoga and what you're learning there, and you're taking that to your job prospects. I mean, do the same thing. You are opening up opportunities, but I think the same thing can happen when you think of taking care of your child's medical needs. If you just keep doing the work, plugging away, there's going to be a resource that opens up that you may not have known even exists, right? So you're doing all this baseless projection into the future that your child's going to have all these medical needs, first of all.
Right. He's totally healthy. He has no medical needs right now.
Yeah. Like, okay, so you have a wellness check once in a while. But I get it. Like, I'm a parent. So, I mean, there is that worry too, because if something were to happen, you'd want the best care for your kid. But right now, I'm hearing you say it's just black and white, that he won't have that care if you don't have the job. And I am challenging you and saying, no, back up. Go with your guide. Present that opportunity, because then an opportunity to take care of his medical needs will arise. But that's where you have to kind of really keep that fear in check. And I know and as a parent where you are taking care of another human being, that's where I feel it's the hardest to do, because it's no longer about you.
Absolutely.
And if you fail that little person, there's no coming back from that sometimes, right? Like you don't want to fail that little person. So I just think you've got to have that awareness.
Yeah. It's so weird because I'm aware of where the stories are coming from. And I'm aware that it's social conditioning, and I'm aware that I have a golden opportunity to do something else. And then when I decide what to do with my time, the first impulse is still to go to the fear response and do the thing and do the job thing, you know? But
I think it's because it makes the fear subside temporarily. But it's like, if I'm searching for a job, then there's sort of hope that there's going to be a job, and then insurance will be there. Right? So all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid on it.
Oh my God. I was just thinking that it's like this stupid sciatic leg pain that I was dealing with, and how it got so bad that I couldn't function until I got rid of the pain.
Yes.
And even when I was trying to figure out how to get rid of the pain, my guide was like, hey, this pain is a teacher, learn the lesson and it'll go away. And I was like, or I can just pay a bunch of money to medical professionals and make it go away, you know? And then they made it go away a little bit, but it took a lot of work and a lot of maintenance and stuff. And then I started learning the lesson, and then it started going away. And I just equated what you said about fear to that pain, where now I'm not operating according to my leg pain, but still, I'm still operating according to, what do I have to do immediately to make this fear go away immediately, which is what I did with the pain.
Right.
And then I figured out a thing that kind of kept it at bay, but never really solved the problem. And so I'm laughing at the epiphany because it's just another, like, she's been laying it on thick, my guide. Like, every day there's been some kind of a nudge from somewhere that's like, hey, you could job hunt, or you could do this other thing.
Exactly. And clearly they have your highest good in mind. And so when you're aligning with that, which is your true north, the whole point of this podcast, when you start aligning with that, like, the universe is going to line up. And so go that direction, because there are so many possibilities that you are not even aware of. Like, as soon as you decide to align with your highest good, boom, you know, and
it starts happening.
And these worries and fears about taking care of your son's insurance and all that are going to go away, because there's going to be a solution. It's just, we have to sort of let go of control.
And this is just where it comes back to life being practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because here's the thing about that I love about that, is that practice is action. Like, my therapist told me, you have all the time, you have all the freedom that you've been wanting. And now it's your responsibility to use it.
Exactly.
And that was not fun to hear.
Right?
Because now I have to do the thing.
What do you mean? You can't just fix it?
Right. It's like, I have all the
I have to go do something?
You mean that, like the agents aren't just going to call me and ask me to be my agent to do the public speaking that I've never done? Yeah. So, and I thought to myself, like, what am I even going to tell them when I ask them, will you be my agent? Like, I don't even know how that works. And then I realized I have a fucking good eulogy and a TED Talk to just send them.
Exactly.
And say, get me more speaking gigs so I can do this. Right. Like, it would not even be hard.
Right.
It just takes, you have to do it.
Right.
And I don't know why I'm not. You know what I am? I'm the people who are told how to not have a blind spot. And then I'm saying, hey, you're right. That is a better way to do it. I'm going to keep having a blind spot. I'm going to keep turning around. Oh, yeah.
Nice. And then you don't do it. Yeah, you're the very people you described. That's so true.
Why am I doing this podcast? I should be the audience for this podcast.
No, you're doing it because we're in it. We're in it with everybody else.
We are making the podcast that we need to hear.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, that is so true. Yeah.
Oh man, so that's why I'm all over the map.
Okay.
It's do the chores, do the delayed house projects, find a job, don't find a job, do the thing else. Instead of finding a job, freak out about not having a job, find a job, do the house projects, go pick up your kid because now it's 3:30.
Exactly.
That's my whole day.
But here's the thing. You do keep coming back. Like you may be shifting to the negative, but you keep coming back. And I think you keep practicing, you keep showing up. And that's the point. Like eventually our bodies, we're not trained to operate that way. And so you have to kind of intentionally keep pulling yourself back. So I'm saying to you, have that self-compassion. Like even though you're sort of ping-ponging back and forth, you are still coming back regardless. Even though you have your moments throughout the day, it might even be a day or two where you're in bed, kind of whatever, wallowing, whatever it is, but you keep coming back. That's what I'm hearing you say. So that's your evidence. Keep taking that away.
That's good to hear.
Empathy for yourself.
I was even talking to my wife about this, and I was just like, I had so many plans for today, and I didn't do any of them. I have a whiteboard, and I have all the things written down, and normally I'm really good about checking those off and wiping them off. It feels good to erase something off that list,
Right.
And this one day, I had done literally nothing, not even one thing on that list. And I was just beat myself up about it. And she goes, okay, full stop. Would you let me talk about me the way you're talking about you? And I said, no. And then she didn't even continue. She just gave me this look like, okay, you say the rest of the things to yourself that I don't need to say to you. Like,
exactly. Yes.
And I thought, I am not having compassion for myself at all. And that's my biggest thing with other people is I zone in on that. I'm like, you should have compassion on yourself. Right. But I don't do it. That is how I say it. I literally go falsetto and start saying, you should have compassion on yourself.
Okay. I'll take that.
Yeah. So have compassion on myself. I feel like that's it all comes back to that. That's the one lesson that I have to keep learning is to just.
Well, okay. So in doing some research for this class that I taught this morning, I was reminded of this model about connecting with other people. And the foundation is first you have to have connection to self before you can have connection to others, before then, there's mutual connection. I can't think of the word right now. Okay, I'll come back to it. But so often in trying to connect with others, we skip that part, the most important part,
connecting
like ourselves.
To yourself.
Right. Like if we are not in a state of being to connect with others, we will not connect. Even though we may think that, even though there's this veil of illusion of connection, ultimately, if we're not connected to ourselves, we are not connecting to others.
And exercise is the best way to do that.
Yes. Even if it's just a gentle yoga flow.
Yes.
Yes.
That doesn't even feel like exercise when I'm doing it, but then I did it. And I'm just like, I did an exercise thing today. And then you feel better. And when you're doing it, you are... Like I've learned things about my own body from just just going through it.
Right.
And then I don't know. Yeah. Like I've been meditating almost daily for more than a decade. And there's a way you can connect with your interiors, but there's something else entirely to be said for connecting with your body. And when you talk about connecting with yourself, you have to do both.
You do.
And I'm just now at a point where I'm realizing that moving my body is not about musculature or flexibility or fitness or even longevity. Right now for me it's about that as a teacher, and the lessons that I learn are all catalyzed through what you're talking about, connecting with myself physically. That feels so huge. It feels like, I say that because it's probably not even a big deal, but it feels to me it feels like earth shaking.
But I think it is though, because I do think that we have this preconceived idea that I don't have to love myself to love somebody else. I don't have to connect to myself to connect with somebody else. I think you can try to convince yourself that that's true. But if you really were to strip that all away, I think you would realize, like, no, that's not the case at all. There is no way, because if you can't learn to connect with yourself, then really, how are you connecting with other people? So I do think it's big, and I think it's something that people, don't take into consideration. It's like it's not even on their radars.
Right. It feels like a prerequisite to everything. Mm-hmm. It really does. Even going back, like I read something this past week that was the way you love yourself is how you train others to love you.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of people could just stand to sit with for a while. But then going back to connecting that to the golden rule, like treat others the way you want to be treated, right? There's an assumption there that you want to be treated well.
Exactly.
But a lot of people don't really.
Yes.
Like we think we do because it hurts to not be treated well. Mm-hmm. But then we treat ourselves like shit. Mm-hmm. And if it gets out of hand, we then find our way to people who will also treat us like shit.
Right.
Which then tells me that somewhere in your subconscious, you want to be treated like shit. Mm-hmm. Or you think like that's all you deserve.
Exactly.
And so then if that's where you live, then even if you do treat others as you want to be treated, you're still going to treat them like shit. You know?
Yep.
So there's so many good reasons to do this. To just figure out how to love yourself, if for nothing else, than to train the world how to love you.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we want, is to be loved, not just appreciated and liked, but to be loved.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's the connection you're talking about.
Yes, it is. Most definitely. So I have a challenge for you.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm. Okay.
By the time we meet again in a month to sit with our listeners.
I'm gonna write this down.
Yeah, I want to hear about your new agent.
We're new agent. Oh,
that's it. Not even any jobs this agent may get you. I just want to hear about it. Let the record reflect.
About my new agent. If there happens to be an agent among our 40-something listeners.
Correct. Yes. How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, God. Oh. Is that our timer?
Yes, it is.
It's going to be... Should I give out my personal email address? Yes, I should.
This is interesting to give out emails, because I think at some point I would love to respond to things people have going on in their lives.
Yes. We should make a mailbox.
Such a tangent. We should make a mail... Yeah, see, that's where...
the True North.
Right. So, like, if you have a question or something you want us to discuss, we'll do that.
We should do that.
Taking a note.
Yes. That's your homework.
Yep. Okay.
Mine is creating an agent. Yours is make an email address.
Okay.
For the True North podcast, where you can send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, and...
Absolutely.
Stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Well, that's our show.
That is part 1. Absolutely.
Of episode 3.
Yes.
We'll see you guys next time, and maybe actually debrief. And listen to my story.
Maybe.
About how I peed in my car.
Oh, that's such a tease. We're going to have to start with that.